So we have page 109. It's time for when it is this. It is the creative force in the world of the subtle physical. For when he strives for things surpassing earth, too rude the workman's tools, too crude his stuff, and hardly with his heart's blood he achieves his transient house of the divine idea, his figure of a time in for the unborn. Our being thrills with high, far memories and would bring down their dateless meanings here. But too divine for earthly nature's scheme, beyond our reach, the eternal marvels blaze. Absolute they dwell, unborn. Absolute they dwell, unborn, immutable. Immaculate in the spirit's deathless air, immortal in a world of motionless time, and an unchanging muse of deep self-space. So it's a very beautiful description of a parallel world above our physical world. In that world, everything already is shaped, formed, and it is not dependent on the density and resistance of a material instrument. Matter often comes in the way. My heart, my feelings, my mind can shape an idea, an ideal, a thought. My hands can't copy. My hands are made of stuff, of matter. My skill is not capable. So we have these two different pulls. There is the lower material origin, which has its characteristics of material resistance. There is this higher plane where all pre-exists. That pre-existence is what gives us inspiration. There is another world where all things always are. It's the world of the eternal. In the eternal, there is no time frame. All has already been created. From there, sometimes some people receive a kind of a flash. They're made into channels, but it is when he strives for things surpassing earth. So you get the image of a creator, a musician, a painter, a poet, a sculptor, anything, who represents some being who is dissatisfied with the acceptance of life as it is on the flat surface of the physical mind. There are those people who are always asking for something more beautiful, more perfect. They perhaps represent a greater humanity. They have this aspiration, they have this inspiration, they have this opening. So they want something more than just the way things are, to manifest things in a more perfect way. But the workman's tools, to crude the stuff. Our tools, like if an artist doesn't have the right brushes, he doesn't have the physical skill in his hands, he can dream of making a wonderful picture, but his capacity to transmit that dream is inadequate. And that is why when mother, for instance, would see a painting or some work of art, she could recognize the origin, the vision from which it has come down. But in the transmission, in the expression, a certain incapacity and therefore imperfection comes in because the instrument is not up to the mark. That is the whole problem of man. We do have dreams. Always there is that aspect in man who wants perfection. to manifest that perfection requires a certain training. That is partly the work of technique also. There has to be an adequate technique, mastery and skill. It is part of, you might say, your faithfulness to the vision. If I have a vision, I have to be able to transmit it. It will not use a faulty instrument. It might, but then the expression will be faulty. My voice doesn't know how to sing, but I can hear beautiful music. But what I transmit is far from beautiful. That is where there is a pain. So, sometimes it's very painful. And so, hardly, with his heart's blood, hardly with real hardship, with his heart's blood, the suffering comes. It is so difficult. Somebody may look at your painting and say it's very beautiful. You say it is not at all what I wanted to do. Something in me has to manifest itself. So my hands were obliged to paint. But it is not at all what I wanted to see, or what I wanted to depict, because I do not have the ability. It is part of the training. You have to have that preliminary training, which is a combination of skill and consciousness. Inside you, there has to be the ability for being a visionary, be a channel. And there is also that ability to master the expression, the skill, the transmission. Otherwise, there is always a disloyalty to the truth. And so, with his heart's blood, he gives you the image of something that is really painful. And we do have in the stories of great creators and artists a sense of suffering. Inevitably, it is always there. Always. They are never happy with what they do, because they know that what should have come and should have been transmitted is not what is transmitted. We lesser people, we don't know that origin. So we say, oh, it's lovely, which is far from what it was actually at its origin. So, hardly with his heart's blood, he achieves his transient house, this outer expression. In our daily life also, you don't have to be an artist. Living is an art. Being is an art. We are actually transmitting an image of perfection that is an inspiration that the divine has. It's like a challenge. He says, it is through man that I will manifest myself. Man has all the potentialities. But for that, this instrument has to be purified, perfected, made able to transmit it. And man often doesn't even try. He says, if the divine wants to manifest, let him manifest through me. I can't help it, this is the way I am. We accept ourselves as the way we are. Therefore, he calls it a figure of a time in of the unborn. The unborn is the eternal. The eternal comes into time. An inn is just a temporary place where you stay for a little while. But if we go deep enough, we know that this expression of our daily life also is inadequate, is not right. What I am now, the way I live now, the way I think now, the way I feel now, is not at all what I ought to be. I know it deep inside, there is that knowledge that this is not what I am here for. Because there is a connection with the origin. I am a projection of that conscious force. But somewhere the ego, the attachment to my weakness, the acceptance that I am born from the lower creation, so I will always belong to an inferior expression, this remains. And so there is the pain. The high far memories remain. That is our origin. Our being thrills with high far memories. Which is why that original delight of manifestation. The origin is the Satchidananda. We are expressions of that conscious force, which is delight. The delight of manifestation, the delight of expression, which translates itself in the joy, the beauty, the love that are essential in the manifestation of life. Somewhere we are connected with that. That is the high far memories. We respond to that. That is why when we listen to something beautiful, though it's not my music, I feel connected with it somewhere in my being. I read a beautiful line from a poem. It is not my inspiration, but something in me responds. We have the capacity to respond, not necessarily to create. We have also the capacity to respond. So we are also instruments that interpret, that transmit, that interpret, that manifest, that which is not our creation. Nothing is our creation. The origin is elsewhere. It is passing through us. If I am absolutely empty of myself, then I have to become egoless, empty. I don't know, there is an English poet, I think it is Coleridge, I'm not sure, where he speaks of being like a dark reservoir. Reservoir, so then I can echo. If the being is empty, then the echo of something that comes from beyond passes through me. Dark because I have no light of my own. It is not my own consciousness, another consciousness. Then I become a channel, empty of myself. And then that passage comes through me, it manifests through me without too much interference. Otherwise, when I do something, my mind is there all this saying, no, this is not good. You change this, you alter this, you correct this. This can be improved. Because there is always that kind of, even the higher reason, not the completely rational mind, there is also an artistic mind above the rational mind that has its own standards, that has its own values, and that has its preferences and says, this is not beautiful, not to my taste. So I have a taste, I have a choice. Can I be free of any ready-made choice? Can I see things for what they are in themselves? And I approach life and I approach any incident and any creation without any preconceived ideas. No preferences. I see things for just as they are. Then I don't use adjectives of good or bad, right or wrong, beautiful or less beautiful. They are what they are. At most I can say it is perhaps an expression at a particular level of consciousness, if I am aware. It can be a level on the vital plane, it can be an expression on even the physical plane. There is a beauty on the physical plane without any conscious depiction of thought, of truth, of thought. It's a perfection of form, which is very beautiful. You say, this is that. Or it can be a sense of that which is aesthetic. It's a refinement of the senses. And I say, this doesn't fit into my acceptance of what is beautiful. But if I remove my own personal notions of what is beautiful, I see something and say, this is also has a truth of itself. It exists by itself in a vital world. I am not part of that vital world, but a person may have created an image in the vital world. Mother talks about it when she's talking about modern art. Some of it doesn't suit or fit into our earlier notions of what is really considered art. But it is breaking down of rules, of fixed ideas, no fixity of form. It's an outburst of a certain emotion or a certain state of consciousness with which I may not be in tune, or I may be in tune according to if I can remove my prior notions. I say this is what it is. It takes a long inner development. When the first time, for instance, I looked at some paintings of modern art, I found it difficult to call it art. It's very difficult because I had been exposed to a certain different outlook. It takes it's an inner education. Remove your prior outlooks. It has its own truth, which I may not really be in tune with. I may not be. Each of us is a representation of a particular state of consciousness. I may not be in tune with that, but in its own way it's wonderful. But I would prefer not to have it in my room, this picture, that's all. It would give me perhaps difficulties in having to sleep with this picture in my room. It's possible. So, our being thrills with high, far memories and would bring down their dateless meaning here. Dateless meanings, sorry, plural. So our being is transient, and yet memories of eternity are there. Memories of immortality are there in us. Our origin is the eternal. That is something we have forgotten. Our origin is the divine. Some part in us is in harmony with that. And we would like to manifest that eternity here. But too divine for earthly nature's scheme, beyond our reach, the eternal marvel's place. We want to bring that down here. Instead, we have to climb up to that level. They won't come down to that level. We don't have to reduce it to our standards. We have to rise to that standard of perfection. Absolute, they dwell. They don't come down. Unborn, immutable, eternal. It doesn't have any fixed outline of thought, of shape, of idea. Because when we have thoughts and ideas, they change with time. Our opinions grow, our nature changes. What I was yesterday, I am not today. In that world, they are immutable. These are the gods. This is the world of perfection. Immaculate in the spirit's deathless air, immortal in a world of motionless time, and an unchanging muse of deep self-space. Self-space. When we are plunged in a certain consciousness, deep, quiet state of meditation, that is, it reminds me of, somebody asked Mother how to listen to your music. People don't often understand or even, you might say, call it beautiful music. Because we have our notions of what is music. So how to listen to it? She said, Just keep quiet. Let it pass through you. Absolute musing, silence, not with your mind saying, this is not so sweet, this is not attractive, I prefer another kind of music, I prefer this kind of tune, with no such notions. Just be quiet and let it flow through you. It's like a kind of an unchanging muse. It becomes a meditation. It can be a form of outer sleep also. She says, that's very good. If while listening to her music you fall asleep, she says, that's very good. Because then it is doing its work inside you.
For years I've slept. For years I've slept like that at home.
What?
With mother's music.
This, you go to sleep.
At night usually I have to put the music.
And then switch it off?
When I used to get up in the middle of the night, usually nowadays they have that auto switch and all that. So I used to do
Well, that is, perhaps yours reason may have been different. It was a kind of your way of turning, connecting with the divine. But music as music. Music is a form of harmony in sound. Beauty is in form, music in sound. It doesn't always fit into people's notion of music. It is a very beautiful passage that my uncle wrote. Actually, when mother started again playing the organ in 1953-54, until then she had stopped playing. It was thanks to us, 6 of us. And then she called him. She called him to sit and listen. And it was for him a different experience. It is neither Western nor Indian nor anything that he had been accustomed to. And then he said he's written a very beautiful passage. It came like waves, bounding, galloping, something that is really sweeping through the world of sound, something he had never heard before, and his whole being was taken up. But then she had elected him as her instrument. That is different. Later she said, what I can't do with my 10 hands, 10 fingers, I want you to play. So she made him,
I read this article.
So that is when she had selected him, because he did not have a complete classical training. He was not entrenched in the classical notions. He was open to everything. Because of the lack of that training, the others in my family, my father and the others, they had a very strong classical training in Indian music. He did not have that. So he was flexible. He could be molded. He allowed the music to pass through him. The inspiration would pass through him. And he would play whatever she inspired him to play. He did not judge. So that is very necessary. You have to be simply one who can transmit without preconceptions of this is musical, that is less musical, this I understand, this kind of bhajan is good, that kind I can't follow, I don't react, I don't really respond to this music or that music. You can respond to any music. All music, if it is music, has a certain quality. That's a power, a beauty. It could be on the vital plane, it could be on the higher planes. Certainly that is always there. The sense of beauty and harmony is what makes music. But it is a state of your inner consciousness, self-space. So the next condition is only when we have climbed above ourselves, a line of the transcendent meets our road. That is the main thing. We have to break out of our littleness. Then we come in touch with that which is far beyond us and joins us to the timeless and the true. And this is true not for art, for anything. We have to break out of our littleness. We go beyond our little self. Sometimes on the path of our life, a contact with that which is above. The supreme, the nameless, formless absolute comes into within our, you might say, reach. And therefore, in the world of man, who is a limited being, the infinite comes and touches. And that is what we have all the time. We are reading Sri Aurobindo. The infinite has come within our, you might say, small range of expression. We try to read Sri Aurobindo according to us. We don't know that Sri Aurobindo exceeds all that we are trying to talk about. If we expand, if we grow, you read the same line and you find the truths that are waiting for us to discover. So it becomes a discovery not of the text only, it becomes a discovery of ourselves. It's an unfolding of our own consciousness. As our own consciousness opens, we discover things. Because behind the person who is reading or speaking, there is a consciousness. And as slowly that consciousness is in touch with the inner presence, the divine, the psychic, the soul, it becomes a spiritual experience. Otherwise, it is a mental experience. You're reading a text with words and you try to explain the words with the help of your mind. Definitely you will bring it down to the level of your mind which has its own characteristics. But otherwise, it brings to us the inevitable word, that word which transmits the truth of the experience. That is the inevitable word, that is the mantra. The mantra is the sound that transmits the experience, the conscious experience. That sound which cannot be improved, which cannot be altered, which cannot be replaced, because whatever we replace that sound with does not contain that experience. That is called the inevitable word. It has to have the inevitable word. Always, on all levels, in poetry, it is not thought. Poetry is not thought. Poetry is experience. Savitri is experience. All poetry actually is experience at a certain level. And when I experience a poem, I say, why did he use this word? He could have used another word. And I still remember an experience about someone who is telling mother, why did he use this word in Savitri? He should have used that word. I read it somewhere recently. It is founded. Something is founded. Usually in English you say something is founded on. And he said founded in. Founded in this. And the person was telling, my mother was so angry. I heard her shout almost. She's saying, imbecile. You don't know what you're talking about. If he has said founded in, it is founded in. And then it was reported to Sri Aurobindo. Because in English you should normally say this thing is founded on, that is based on something. He said, no, I wanted to say founded in. Inside, it's not on. It's completely different. So we approach that truth with our little knowledge of how things should be expressed. We have our grammatical, you might say, knowledge, or knowledge of vocabulary, or knowledge of English. The more you have the knowledge of the language, the more, you might say, your hands and feet are tied. You can't really move freely in the world of the experience. There are those who don't know very well the language. They are luckier in a way. They move freely in the world of that sound, the vibration, the rhythm. It can sweep them away. But the more you are conscious of how intelligent you are and how your knowledge of the language is advanced, the more you are imprisoned by that knowledge. Knowledge becomes a prison.
On education, Mother has said this. Mother Mother has said this on education book, that those who are literary persons, they will not understand. Not exactly.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
not quoting. She has written one question just 2-3 days back I was reading, and I was quite surprised actually.
Yes, it is true.
Yeah.
We have this, because there is this conceit, pride, that this is a person, highly educated person, the philosopher, the thinker. He is so conscious of his superiority. He can deal with words. So he thinks what he can't understand is not worth understanding. It's not right. What he can understand is right. What he cannot understand is obviously not right. There have been great writers in India, very well-known writers of English in the first folios, because Savitri was appearing in folios in the early days. And they said, what is this language? The language is beautiful, but what is he saying? It makes no sense. And they had very strong opinions, it is nonsense, beautiful nonsense. So you see that we are trapped in that ability of playing with words. If I don't know how to play with words, perhaps the words will play in me, and they will move in me, they will perhaps manifest something in me. And yet, there was the occasion when she asked somebody to paint from Savitri, Huta, who knew very little English. She had not a solid base in the language. She said, first you have to understand. So she sent the person to read with Purani. Then at least you should know the outer basic framework. Afterwards the experience will come to you. But if your connection with the outer framework is not there, perhaps you will not be able to go through the whole experience at all. So she was reading with him. Then Purani left here. He went on tours abroad, America and Africa and all these places. Then Mother asked her to go and study with Amal. First you read that. But that doesn't mean you will be trapped by that study. Like we are reading, hopefully we are not trapped by the reading. If we are, then we are in trouble. You can't experience anything deeper. So, that inspiration joins us to the timeless and the true. It brings to us the inevitable word, the godlike act, the thoughts that never die. Not just word, action, in where men sometimes become more than men. That sense of self-forgetting, that a hero or an artist or anyone, just even for a little while, breaks out of his little cage and manifests something which is an expression of perfection. A ripple of light and glory wraps the brain, and travelling down the moment's vanishing route, the figures of eternity arrive. The forms of... Then we are visited by forces, gods, beings, inspirations. They come down, flowing, because the figures of eternity means that forms of perfection. They can come, we incomplete and changing beings can contain that which is perfect. Sometimes, if we allow ourselves to be occupied by those presences. But for that I have to allow myself to free myself of my littleness. If I have wiped off my littleness, let them come into my being, let these beings, gods and goddesses, forces, inspirations, that come. And that is when geniuses, musicians, artists, creators, painters, they become mediums. A person becomes a medium He becomes a transmitter. He is not just a creator. He transmits. The creation is made by somebody else. As the mind's visitor or the heart's guests, they espouse our mortal brevity a while. It is as if the divine joins, the permanent, eternal joins our temporary existence, even for a while. They espouse, they mingle with us. Or seldom, in some rare delivering glimpse, are caught by our vision's delicate surmise. Sometimes we do have these moments of connection with the higher planes. They come not very often. But if I can do it even once, I feel I'm connected with some other world. It is a sign that we are also part of that world. I cannot have an imagination, I cannot have an inspiration which is unreal. My creation, even an imagination, as Mother says, is an image-making faculty. That image must be existing somewhere. Not in the physical world, maybe, but it has to exist. That is why I can relate with it. And so it is the range of human experience, the planes through which we can also move up and down the ladder of the worlds. They are so infinitely complex, so rich. So, or seldom in some rare delivering glimpse, delivered from reason. Seldom, not very often. You have a flash, you have a vision. Therefore, creators, poets are not often like the Vedic rishis. They did not call themselves thinkers, they were not sages, they were not philosophers, they were poets. They said poets are seers. They see and they express what they see. They see not the physical, beyond the physical there are worlds and worlds. Something in them is open to those visions. That is what truly a spiritual being is. He is open to planes of experience far beyond our normal, even physical, mental, vital life. Although beginnings only and first attempts, these glimmerings point to the secret of our birth. So this is so beautiful. It shows where we really come from and the hidden miracle of our destiny. This is where we come from, that world of perfection. And that is our ultimate destiny, to manifest completely what we are in our essence. Essentially, we are divine. Outwardly, we are not. We have wrapped ourselves with all kinds of different things, different educations and trainings, but our nature is to manifest what we originally were. We are children of God and must be even as He. These point to the secret of our birth and the hidden miracle of our destiny. The human destiny of the human being is to be divine. Man is a creation of the divine. Man outwardly is very far from manifesting that perfection. What we are there and here on earth shall be. So what is far away in that world of perfection, that far away will become our house, home here. Here on earth shall be is imaged in a contact and a call. In the beginning it's something, just a kind of a flash, just a connection. But we are not cut off from our origin if we allow ourselves to be related to that source from which we come. As yet, earth's imperfection is our sphere. Our nature's glass shows not our real self. That greatness still abides, held back within. Because we have a doubting mind, an analytical reason. So that inner truth is waiting when we have cleansed our outer nature, made it clean, clean of all the accumulated, you might say, things that we have filled our lives with. These are first attempts to express something greater than ourselves. What we are there in that origin, and here on earth shall be, is imaged in a contact and a call. As yet, earth's imperfection is our sphere. At present, this is our normal state. Our nature's glass shows not our real self. Our nature is not a mirror, it's a broken mirror. Mirror of our inner self stays unreflected because we have developed our outer nature. The inner presence has not been contacted. That greatness still abides, held back within. So that is the task we have to do. We have to become ourselves, the real self that we are. We have taken so much time and trouble to develop the outer self. So the inner self remains quiet, not dormant, aware, but in the background, saying it's not yet time. Okay, it's time.